go to Area 51, man. We gotta go.
I am so totally down.
Really? I mean, I'm usually waiting for kind of a counterbalance here, but I guess we're gonna go, huh?
Yeah, man. All right, let's do this. What are you hoping to find?
Yo, man, we got some government secrets that we gotta expose to the world, man. We gotta get back at them. We gotta get in there and we gotta get back at them.
Awesome. I'm hoping to find some alien puss.
Wait, what?
Yep, I'm gonna stick my dick in something green and squishy.
David, I think you're gonna catch something intergalactic that way.
Yeah, I'm gonna catch some intergalactic ass.
I kinda don't want to go now.
Too late. Already bought my ticket.
David, there are no tickets to this thing.
What did I spend $200 on?
I have no idea.
Movie?
Yeah.
We watched a movie today.
Planet 51.
Planet 51. Wow, it's almost like there's a theming to today's episode. Crazy.
Little bit.
Little tiny bit.
Tiny bit. Not much. Can't really recognize it all that much, but
We're
it's
very
there.
subtle.
We are the kings of subtlety.
And modesty.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so Planet 51 is an animated movie by a bunch of studios I've never heard of, starring a lot of names for some reason.
That you have heard of.
You got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, Gary Oldman, Justin Long,
Jessica Biel. Sean William Scott.
Stifler, yep.
Yep. Gary Oldman.
I already said that.
John Cleese.
Oh, John Cleese. John Cleese. He was last week's episode. He was in that too.
James Corden. Did you see him already?
No, I didn't.
Okay, James Corden.
I never recognized him. I never picked out his voice in this movie. He was around, but
he was a soldier. He was one of the soldiers. I don't remember which one.
That's just it. He never.
Vern Kotz, whatever the fuck his name is, he's in it.
And a couple other people. Anyway, so let me just boil down this movie's plot real quick. So, it is your standard alien invasion movie. Not like horror, but like E.T. comes and visits, and they got to get him back to his ship and go off. The flip being is that it takes place on a different planet, and the invader is a human astronaut.
Whoa!
What? And so, it's playing up all the things.
Role reversal.
It's set, the whole planet's got a 1950s sort of aesthetic to it.
Yeah.
And then the astronaut lands, and he's like from today pretty much. I guess 2009, because that's when it was released. He's voiced by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. The main alien kid is Justin Long. He's got a nerdy best friend who's Stifler.
Who's Stifler?
Jessica Biel.
Skiff.
Is the...
Sounds like a peanut butter.
Yeah, and our main character's name is Lem. And what's the name of the astronaut?
Captain Charles
Chuck.
T. Baker.
Chuck. They kept calling him Chuck. And our main love interest is Jessica
I never
Biel.
saw the Dwayne Johnson play somebody so white.
He is very white. Okay?
Wow! He's Wonder Bread white.
So, you got Gary Oldman as like a general in the army. You got John Cleese as like the scientist who's
General Grawl.
Their names aren't going to matter.
Professor Kipple.
10 seconds. That's as much as I give that memory.
He's a dog food.
Oh,
the dogs.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, save him.
Okay.
Save him.
Okay.
Okay, so they... everything's hunky-dory. Everything's going great for Lem. He just got a job at a planetarium. By the way, they believe that the universe is like 500 miles across, and there's like maybe a couple galaxies, maybe. Very small scale.
Which, because most of the people are dumb, they believe.
Yep. And then the ship lands with the astronaut. He gets out. He plants the flag. He's like, oh, shit, there's a whole society here. The fuck? So he runs away. He ends up hiding. The main character finds him, and he ends up... saying, all right, I'll get you back to your ship. But the military's already come in, stopped it, locked up the ship. And he's like, well, fuck, how are we supposed to get you back? You got to get him back in orbit within 3 days, because that's when the ship is going to depart back to Earth, with or without him.
The auto depart.
Yep. So he's like, all right, so the plan is to just get him past the military into the ship. And then, pretty much hijinks ensue, and they keep on doing the same thing 4 different times. More people are introduced to the alien Chuck over the course of the movie, his best friend, whatever. There's a weird subplot where the girl he's interested in is joined by this 60s guy named Grar, who's protesting no particular thing. They're just upset. It ends up being protesting treatment of the alien, but at the beginning they're just protesting because whatever. So then, after a long enough time, they hide him out in the comic shop that the skiff works at. TV crew finds him, broadcasts him, literally quoting movie lines that make him seem like he's a total, like, here to...
Yeah. I'll be back.
You'll be terminated. Like,
I'll be terminated.
Things that are seeming as though he's
Star
here to
Wars.
kill people.
Yes.
Yeah. We will crush the Rebel Alliance and all that sort of stuff. So then they... Something happens on the in-between, but I can't remember what, so I'll skip ahead that the...
they... talk.
Yeah.
They
have that whole emotional thing where he's like trying to
somewhere
staring up at the stars.
There.
He tells them like what the universe is like, for real, where it's billions of miles and billions of galaxies and whatever.
Billions.
Billions.
Oh, Carl Sagan, you live on.
So the movie ends with them. There's this movie that's been going on the whole time called Attack of the Humaniacs 3. And they were doing a costume contest to do that. So they were like, we can smuggle him through because he kind of looks like the Humaniac.
He called that shit at the beginning of the movie.
Right away. It was super obvious. Because it's the E.T. thing where they go out on Halloween and they dress him up. It's like, oh, cool costume.
So much of the aspects of this plot are just ripped off from other movies.
Yeah.
Now, to be fair... the line between rip-off and homage is whether or not you like it.
Yeah, exactly. For we'll get into it, but like Chuck, when he was getting out of his ship, they started playing also
Thus Spake Zarathustra.
Yeah, and then the music cuts away, and he's literally humming it.
But also at the same time, that makes no sense because I know Thus Spake Zarathustra, when its relation to sci-fi, is always 2001.
Yeah.
That is not when that song was playing. But it also, I can forgive that bullshit because there's so many just random references in here. We're going to get to the biggest one in a second. But like in WALL-E, when that movie came out and that had the 2001 reference, it made sense because the autopilot was the main villain in that scene.
Hal.
Yeah, so it was totally a Hal representation right there.
It was Otto.
This one was just kind of out of context.
Yeah.
It was almost like a non sequitur.
It was just there because it's like, hey, you remember this from that space movie, right? Yeah. Here it is in this one. So the movie ends with them. They find him at the costume contest. It turns out it didn't work, and he ends up. There's a whole thing where they believe the alien can
control brains.
Yeah, zombify people. So he gets the main character off the hook of all of the trouble that he caused by saying like, "You are my zombie, but now I free you because you are of no use to me anymore." And he's like, "Good luck, kid. I'm gonna go fucking die now."
Yes.
And so
the sacrifice.
Then they break him out of Base 9, not Area 51.
Base 9.
Which is exactly Area 51.
I guess they don't have that many bases.
Nah, it's like 4 of them.
Will they have Base 9?
I started counting at 6. So
there are no more odd numbers.
That's not going to make any sense. So
that's a personal joke.
So the
too long to explain.
They end up breaking in. They get him out. They get him into the lunar thing. There's this whole thing of like the general who's been like holding him because like, oh, you're different and unknown and terrified.
Look at him, it's different.
And the main character comes up. He's like, you shouldn't be afraid of the unknown. I've been running from the unknown and whatever. Blah. It causes the self-destruct of the whole base. Lunar thing takes off. Gets back into orbit, and they cease.
And then they go back down again.
Because they got to drop the kids off before he goes back home.
Got to turn the kids off the school.
Yeah, so he drops the kids off, and everyone's like, oh, you're okay, Mr. Astronaut. Good job. Yay. And he flies off, and then it's literally like smash cut to credits. There's a mid-credit scene, but it doesn't matter. So where do you want to start? Because I know where I want to start.
I want to start with the xenomorph puppies.
Okay, yes. So in the opening where they're showing that this is like a 50s town and everything's so great, it's just, they're showing the town and then how it's slightly different. Like they're showing that it rains, but it rains rocks.
Yeah.
And they show that like the cars all go around, but they're all hovering.
God,
and
what would be hurricanes would be like there?
God, boulders.
No, people would be fucking dying.
But the one thing that they show was a woman, she has a leash and you hear the bark bark and she's walking the dog and then stops to let it pee on a lamppost, but then the lamppost starts shifting and you see that it has been burned by acid because the dog is quite literally a xenomorph.
Yep.
Legally distinct xenomorph.
And apparently the dog xenomorph that is the one that completely wrecks the mailman, apparently that one's named Ripley.
I wasn't aware of that.
And apparently on the dog house it says Ripley. Huh. I didn't see that either.
Makes sense.
I'm going off of IMDb with that's the only piece of trivia for this movie.
Wow.
It's like, but apparently, yeah, and then it goes to explain who Ripley is. Yeah. But by this point, you should fucking know who Ripley is. But at the same, okay, there are two major things for this movie. Okay. One really good and one bad. Yeah. I really liked the kind of alien futuristic retro aesthetic they had going there, where there are obviously multiple alien civilizations in various stages of development, and just by possibility standards, having an alien race be in basically along the same type of trajectory as we were in the 50s at any point during our history is a relatively realistic idea. I actually think that's kind of cute.
Relatively realistic in, like, universal terms.
Well, that's what
it happens at some point among infinity.
Well, it's kind of like what they were doing with Star Trek, is because they would come across these civilizations that were in various stages of development.
Right. My whole thing is the fact that, like, when they introduce them to each other, they're speaking the same language, and that's the point where it's like,
but they can't read the same language.
Yeah, exactly. Despite the fact that throughout the movie you see English text on buildings, yet for some reason when they see it on a Twix wrapper, it's like, these are surrender
or die, and this is a list of demands.
Like, okay, sure.
But the thing that, and also, like, a lot of the aspects of this movie are completely pulling from 1950s tropes and old B sci-fi movie cliches.
And pretty much every space movie that's ever come out.
Yeah, and ever. I honestly think that that's really kind of cute, especially the way that they kind of designed it. I think that the character models are really, honestly very attractive for what they're trying to do. The worst part of this for me was Dwayne Johnson. Yeah. And it's not really necessarily his fault. It's the way that they wrote the character. Yeah. I think that the character, and I get why he's supposed to be, like, really egotistical and all that shit in the very beginning, but he never fucking changes.
Well,
at one point he does, but then at the end he's literally the same guy. He ends off with trying to establish an interstellar fan club of his on a different planet.
Okay, here's my thing on that, though, is that while, yes, he's still very egotistical, at the beginning of the movie, like, he's hiding out on the car or whatever, like, underneath the blanket, and he just shoves the main character in and being like, all right, go get my ship. Whereas in the end of the movie, he's sacrificing himself and, like, letting this kid, he's like, look,
it's fair. I guess it's just my whole thing is, like, the way that they wrote him, he's very quick-mouthed.
Yeah.
And he's really, he's kind of sassy.
I think the problem is that everything leading up to his introduction, 25 minutes in, was when he took off his helmet. Everything leading up to his introduction was like those little wink, wink, nudge, nudge things. Where they're like, hey, look, xenomorph dog, huh?
Look at all the sci-fi movies we've seen.
When it comes to him talking, he's literally explaining the stuff. Like, it's so over the head. Like, it's not so much wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's like wink, wink, crowbar, punk.
And this is all nudges for the parents of the kids who were dragged to this movie. Because you know for a fact that a kid young enough to want to go see this movie is not going to know who the fuck Ripley is.
Yeah, or thus spoke
Zarathustra, or any of that type of shit. And that isn't necessarily to say that wasn't going to happen, but I think one of the problems that I had with this movie is that I didn't exactly know what audience it was catering to. Because even some of its more kind of, I would say, kid-centric jokes were still things that were kind of really thrown back. I don't know. I'm kind of changing course halfway in that statement there, because I'm about to say, I'm like, it throws back to shit well before their birth, but honestly, shows like fucking Stranger Things are all nothing but 80s throwbacks, but I have students who fucking love them, and of course they don't know half of the references they're talking about.
For me,
I guess it depends on the style, the way they deliver it.
I don't think that anything in, like, I'm glad that they didn't, like, just talk down to the kids the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, where it's just like, oh yeah, like, they did a lot of slapstick. But it was well done slapstick. It wasn't like the sort of thing where it's just like, oh, he fell on his butt for the 18th time.
Yeah.
No, they had scenes where, like, there's a diner run through, and they did creative ways of, like, the character hiding and like throwing plates at each other. Like they did creative things there.
Even though the situations were kind of cyclical when they was trying to get back.
That's what I'm saying. I literally cannot remember from the point where they get into the comic shop to the point where they have the costume. It is all just a blur.
And most of it is just people just kind of shooting the shit back and forth with each other. But okay, like I touched a little bit on this real quick, but I want to say that according to IMDb, the budget for this movie was something close to $70 million. And honestly, it kind of shows the full gross though that this movie bombed.
Yeah,
this movie definitely bombed. That's one of the reasons why we're watching it. Yeah. But this movie was made for an estimated $70 million, and it made back in the U.S. Little over 42.
I imagine that this is probably one of those ones though where it's like, you get a DVD release and you make back the rest of your budget there.
But that's also the thing. Like, I don't know, like. The way that so many of the jokes that they have in here that are all like the 50s jokes or it was just like the limited knowledge that we had of space and space exploration during that time. It wasn't that insane. Like, oh, the Earth is only the universe is only 500 miles wide. We knew the universe was bigger by the 50s.
I think it was supposed to set up a thing of this being a very unaware culture.
Well, they also are like, there's no way that other alien life can exist in space. So they were of this understanding that they're a very insular kind of world where they don't. It's weird too because
that's what I wonder is the whole reason that like the sci-fi space thing took off mostly in cinema in our 1950s was because of things like Sputnik and the space race and whatever like that. It was
Sputnik's fucking reference too.
So I'm wondering like if this is a very insular society of not doing that. What caused their sci-fi boom? Because like they were this Humaniacs premiere was the fucking like holy shit.
And also that's because like in the 50s, sci-fi movies were not considered to be very big business. They were always the B films, and the term B film literally means that it was the second film that played in the two picture run. So you had the A films, which were always like the big budget films from Paramount and all that jazz, and then you had the B budget independent films, were always these little dinky sci-fi movies or monster movies or whatever it happened to be. Like what was it? One that they referenced in this really quickly was Them, the giant ant movie.
And Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Attack of the 50-Foot. Yeah, like they just rapid fire go through all these movies. And so again, I think, and you can tell that one of the guys who worked on this worked on Shrek. Because it's trying to have this combination of jokes that are adults for the adults in the audience, but it can still manage to entertain all the kids. Yeah. I think Shrek 1 and 2 managed to do that extremely well, and I think it started falling apart after that point.
He didn't write Shrek 3.
Okay.
I will say that. So it is possible that it's just this guy.
Okay. So, but I think one of the things that it didn't quite click in this film was the fact that the adult and the child-centric humor didn't really jive. They weren't symbiotic.
No.
In a way. They're kind of almost happening just kind of concurrently, but not connected to one another.
Yeah. No, I could see that. For me, I think that it worked a little bit better than that. I think that, like, some of the humor, like, there was points where it was, what was it? Like, they were referencing the, Star Wars movies when the two leads get together and it's like, oh, it's just like Luke Skywalker, and he's like, you guys aren't brother and sister though, right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of those things that you can guarantee that like a lot of kids have seen Star Wars and they probably
but so
get that.
Many kids wouldn't get that reference.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one of those things that it works for both.
Yeah.
It is the kids.
And people die in this movie, by the way.
Oh yeah. There's one point. Okay, I'm gonna bring him up. I'm gonna bring up the best. They're the best character by far.
We haven't brought him really up.
Is a little rover. It is a tiny little robot that's just sent there to collect rocks and send back images of the rocks. And he is a dog, and he is the best.
He is the best.
The absolute greatest part of this movie.
And I told this to David when we were watching the film, if you cut Dwayne Johnson's character completely out, if you cut Chuck completely out of the story and just had this Rover interacting with this society, I would have been so much more entertained.
Oh, yeah. You were saying, though, it would definitely be a ripoff of WALL-E.
Oh, it would. But at the same time, though, it kind of would be a reverse of that as well. Because as opposed to, like, it's as opposed to Eva... or Eve, whatever the way, Eva, finding a plant and coming back to the humans. It's just the interaction on the planet.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like the first half of WALL-E, just with a lot more people.
Yeah, but see, I just love it so much in that it's like his whole thing. He was programmed to go find space rocks, so he lands on this planet full of aliens and society. And he doesn't care about any of that. He just sends back pictures of rocks. And like when it starts raining rocks, he's looking out the window.
Starts flipping out.
You see his HUD pop up, rock, and he busts through the diner window and just starts doing a singing in the rain montage.
Yeah.
It is the best. But in the way of killing characters, one of our early parts was he was going down a road, he found a rock. He took the rock, he put it in his little storage container.
Yeah.
Going down the road, picked up another rock. This one's got like a weird space slug on it. And he's like, oh, space slug pick off. Start analyzing the rock. Slug comes back on. Pick off. Throw it off the side. Slug jumps back over his head and rock.
And like, I was expecting like the slug to like pop back up because there's a couple of really really cartoony moments in here that like are straight out of Looney Tunes or Warner Brothers. It's like, well, it's like, but at the same it is. But at the same time, he drove off and he was still just squished. I'm like, oh, he fucking died.
He's just dead.
All right,
cool.
All
right.
What was the other guy? There was another guy who died.
Who died? No, I think that we thought the general died.
We thought the general died, but no, there was another person in there that very clearly died. Also, the doctor that John Cleese plays, he cuts brains out of people's skull, and somehow
typical mad scientist.
Yeah, and apparently these two dumbass soldiers, one of them
who they thought that they were zombified by the alien, but of course they weren't.
Yeah, and so they pulled their brains out of him, and all of a sudden they're really smart and really articulate and intelligent. And then at the post-credit scene at the very end, they basically drag the doctor away with a hacksaw, saying that he needed to have his brain removed as well. Yeah. And then it ends with him screaming.
It's dark. It's supposed to be lighthearted, but it's
dark. Like it gets dark, and I was really surprised. It's not necessarily that I necessarily disliked the scenes or any particular way, but I'm just like, it's a little out of place.
No, but yeah, I think the only character we thought died was the postman.
But
he showed up later. So
that's true. So I guess the only thing that really died was the slug.
Yeah.
So, but
Pete is gonna have some issues.
We had this essence of death throughout the movie.
Okay, so Rover, absolutely best character.
He's a reason to watch the movie.
He is 100%. Like, you can do away with Justin Long character. I would probably say Stifler's character as well. In fact, I would say almost every character except for Gary Oldman as the general. Mm-hmm. Like, if you just had the interaction be him with a bunch of like no-name people, like the Rover, with a bunch of no-name people, and then his main antagonist is the general, I'd be fine with that movie.
Yeah.
I'd be 100% okay with that movie.
And again, though, it would totally be a WALL-E clone.
Yeah, but I wouldn't care.
Yeah. And WALL-E came out roughly around this time. Yeah. So that's, I think, one of the reasons why Rover was included in this is because WALL-E did so fucking well.
It is. I do wonder the production cycles on these things. This does seem like, Pixar obviously takes their damn sweet time kicking out the best product they can.
They have the resources for it.
WALL-E was 2008. This was 2009. So I doubt that it was. Pixar went through the entirety of the WALL-E cycle. They released it, or at least the promotional material, and then Planet 51 came out. Like, well, shit, get that little robot in the movie.
Yeah, I don't know the exact critical response of of Planet 51. I know that it got ripped by critics.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know if a lot of people made comparisons between that and WALL-E when it came out.
People had to see it for that to happen.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Like, it definitely was not in the theater all that much. No. But, I figure, you want to move into final thoughts?
Animation was fine.
Animation was actually pretty fluid. Yeah. I think that you got the money worth for it looks like a $70 million movie.
There's nothing in there that's particularly janky. Like,
except Dwayne Johnson's face.
It's janky only in the sense that, like, you get used to all the aliens. So seeing a person, like someone who's supposed to look human, is like, that's a little bit weird compared to everything else that I've already assigned humanity to.
And to be fair, that I think that might have been one of the
intentions.
The intentions behind it, to make the human look the most alien out of this. Because also you spend a good 20, almost 30 minutes with all of the aliens before, you know, Chuck even comes down on the planet.
Yeah.
So he's considered to be the invading force in many different ways. And I was actually kind of grooving with, like, the first, like, 25 minutes of the movie. And then when you had this one really...
As they started talking to each other, you're like, oh, I hate it.
And the movie got bad. But then it kind of... It's like
you
somebody...
had such whiplash.
It was like somebody having a heart attack. Like, you know, it was just constantly, like... radically spiking.
Your emotions seem to basically depend whether or not Rover was on screen or Chuck was on screen.
Yeah.
Rover was a severe high.
And
Chuck
the funny thing is, though, when Chuck and Rover were on the screen at the same time, Rover's presence was able to cancel it out.
Yeah.
So, for the most part, yeah.
Final thoughts.
Yeah, final thoughts for me is just the fact that, one, I don't understand why this movie bombed nearly as badly as it did. I know that there's environmental and exterior factors and all that kind of stuff going on with it, but at the same time, though, I think that a lot of parts of this were really funny. A lot of parts of this were really fun. I dig on, like, kind of the retrofuturism style of this world. I like John Cleese's, professor character. He's just so hype about, like, the fact that everyone's a zombie, and just that he can, like, tell by just doing mind stuff that if you're controlled or not, which is obviously all full of bullshit.
Yeah.
And I love Rover. Everything about Rover was fantastic. His Singing in the Rain thing was phenomenal. I don't even particularly care for that movie. But at the same time, this is actually one of the better movies that we have definitely done for the show. I honestly would give this movie a straight 3 out of 5. There are parts of it that I'm not too great with, and there's some parts that are shaky, and I actually am a big fan of Dwayne Johnson as an actor, so him not being a really great actor in this movie is something that kind of set me off. But I think this is also when he was starting still to kind of come on up. I mean, of course, this was like 10 fucking years ago at this point, so that's just my finals.
For me, yeah, pretty much all the same. Rover by far sets the movie, and it's no contest that he's the best character. Everyone else, totally fine. It's a serviceable enough plot. If you've seen E.T., you've seen this movie's plot for the most part. It's much less heart, but a lot more comedy to it.
Literal E.T. moments.
So besides that, yeah, no, it's a fine enough animated movie, and probably didn't get the low box office it got, but you always run that risk with kids' movies at any point.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and those are our thoughts on
Planet 51. Oh, Dave. Looks like we're not going anywhere, man.
What? No, I just bought the lead line condoms. Why is it off?
Yeah, it looks like it's illegal for civilians to go on a government property.
Since when?
Since, always.
What? I pay taxes. What the hell is that going for?
That absolutely has nothing whatsoever to do with this.
This is bullshit. This is bullshit, and I am angry. We need to let the government know that this is not okay. We are citizens, and we can use our drive and determination to make anything happen in this country. And I think it's time that we whip out the best weapons that we have, and we'll show them exactly how powerful the citizenry can be.
I am upset.
What? Where's my titties?
It's so hot, David.
Why do people live in New Mexico?
I'm gonna go wait in the car.
I want to see the Breaking Bad set.
Made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.